Candace had another incredible show last night where she revealed a lot. Among the many things that we learned last night, Candace has a leaker or an informant, an insider, that claims that the hospital staff was moved to another wing of the hospital on the day that Charlie Kirk was taken out. And also that the patients that were arriving at the ER were shuttled to a different hospital that day. All of this done in advance. So how could they have known? This is incredible. And we're going to get to that. But let's start at the beginning of her show. First, we're going to take a look at Andrew Guajardo. He is the medical examiner, or the assistant, maybe he was at the time, the assistant, but he is the one that performed the autopsy on Charlie Kirk. Let's take a listen to what Candace has to say about that.
His name is Dr. Andrew Guajardo. He is from New York. He moved to Utah in 2018 and was working as an assistant at the medical examiner's office.
Andrew Guajardo is the person that performed the autopsy. We also learned that it was done quickly, and we'll get into that in a second. First, let's take a look at his wife, who he's married to. This is what Candace kind of focused on. And apparently his wife is a furry, if you can believe it. So there's a lot of dots that are connecting in this whole investigation. And the furry theme, I don't even think anybody knew what a furry was before this all happened. I didn't know. Andrew's wife is Ashley Brown Guajardo, and she is a full-blown card-carrying furry. And she has written several books, and she's also in the gaming industry. No surprise there. So let's take a listen.
Bring her in as an expert, because Dr. Andrew Guajardo is married to a furry. I kid you not. Or at least, the very least we can assert is that he's married to someone who encourages, supports, works with, and propagates the culture of furries, and occasionally dresses up as one herself. He's married to a woman named Dr. Ashley Brown Guajardo. And here she is. Meet Ashley.
Wow. So there she is. That's his wife. And she is definitely a furry. And a little bit more on Ashley.
Playful practices both reflect current cultural values and shape how we relate to video games and ourselves. They develop the concept of what they call the fangirl gaze to show how communities of fangirls can be regarded as oppositional, subversive, and transformative in terms of societal expectations and gender, play, and sex. Okay.
So this is a book that she's writing, and this is one of the description, or a book that she wrote, possibly, but she's written more than one. So that's interesting. And if we go a little bit further into this.
And she's currently working on a book which explores how fantasy can shape your sexual desire. But the biggest thing that I want to underscore is just how deeply submerged she is in gamer culture.
Gamer culture. Yeah. Does that sound familiar? It is more than a coincidence that she is deeply into that. And as we know, Lance Twiggs and Tyler Robinson were both heavily into the gaming industry, or gaming community, I guess you could say. Discord and online chats, things like that. So Candace is kind of asking questions about that. Is it possible that she knew Lance Twiggs?
So again, I'll ask the question, how big can this particular gaming furry create a character that is outside of yourself? Join me on Discord, Twitch community in Utah. B, has she ever come across Lance Twiggs?
That's the question. Has she ever come across Lance Twiggs? So that's a very good question. I don't know the answer, but I think that the dots are connecting. Then we move on to the hospital and Frank Turek's clothes, all of their clothes, the clothes and how they ended up in scrubs. What happened to their clothes? Was the FBI there? Now we're getting information that the FBI confiscated their clothes and probably, as Candace says, probably destroyed all of the clothes. Let's take a listen to that.
Nobody knows why or how he got that blood on him, because if Brian Harpole is to be believed, he was doing all of the work while Rick Cutler was holding him, while Frank was praying in the back. So we asked the question, how could these stories be so different, where Frank says he did CPR and Brian says he didn't? Did Frank just write himself into the story because he needed to explain why he took off all of his clothes to the hospital and was wearing scrubs?
Very possible. Very possible. Yeah, and because we're getting conflicting stories. Brian Harpole tells one story, Frank Turk tells a completely different story. And then Frank goes on and says, well, that's normal. When you take eyewitness accounts, they're always going to be wrong or different. Well, that's true. But when you're investigating, when you're doing an investigation and you're questioning suspects, and the facts matter. I mean, these facts matter. And so when their story starts to change like that, that's a red flag for the police to say, okay, this person is lying. That's exactly what they look for. They look for those little inconsistencies in the story to let them know that something is not right. So no, Frank, it's not normal. It's not healthy, and everybody sees through it. So sorry, it's not working.
Should be doing bagging the clothing and sending it to be stored for further examination or in case it comes up. Maybe further testing. Maybe it'll come up in throughout the course of the court cases.
This is the FBI. She's talking about confiscated the clothes, as I said. And we don't know where those clothes are. That would be important, very important. And it's also important to note that why did they have to change clothes? Frank couldn't have had, I don't see any reason why some of the people in that group would have been completely covered in blood from head to toe, or at least enough to where they had to change their clothes. So that is quite odd. Now Candace is going to talk a little bit about the inconsistencies in the investigation, the screwdriver, the rifle, the lack of any evidence that it was on the roof, and let's take a listen to that.
My body cam just went out at the exact moment when I found the screwdriver. There's going to be a lot of that. I want the story to become increasingly more cartoonish, for the influencers to become more radical, because I think it's needed for the world to awaken to what exactly it is that rules over us.
Exactly. And she wants to see how far they will push the lie. How long are the people, the sycophants, really the people that are following blindly and just saying, no, this is the way it was this one narrative. At least the people in the investigation are asking questions. Podcasters and people that are just trying to get the truth don't have a set narrative in their head. They don't already think something, but it's getting there. I mean, we're starting to form a picture. Back to the hospital. Now, of course, everyone's heard where Brian Harpole told the story about how he took charge of the whole ER and that he grabbed a gurney and he put Charlie up on there and jumped up on him and cut his shirt off and wheeled him into a room and started giving out medical instructions to the staff and started telling them which medications to give and what to do. And while the medical staff just looked at, taking notes with their pad and writing down, oh, okay, we'll do this, we'll do that. It is quite ridiculous. Now,
many of us have noted how odd it is that there were no eyewitnesses to the extremely erratic, chaotic, and utterly improbable ER scene. Where are the witnesses to the events that took place that day at Timpanogos Hospital?
Okay, so this is all talking about the hospital. We're trying to figure out. Brian Harpole and Frank Turek tell it one way. Now, Frank did say when they arrived at the hospital was empty. So that does kind of reinforce the story here that maybe people were transferred out and patients would have been shuttled out, as this insider is claiming. But we're getting to that.
Where are they? That's a scene. Didn't they see him doing that? Didn't they see Dr. Harpole House? Well, listen to this. I am told that at some point in the 10 o'clock a.m. hour on September 10th, so to be clear, and this is crucial, over 2 hours before Charlie was shot, the Timpanogos hospital staff directed everyone who was in the emergency room into a different wing of the hospital. Then after some time, at approximately 11:30 a.m., patients were informed that they would be transferred aboard shuttles to Intermountain Hospital. That's Utah Valley Hospital. And that's what happened. All of the emergency room patients and all of their files were then transferred to Intermountain.
There is the headline right there. People were transferred out of the ER. Now, this is a claim. This is an insider, a leaker that Candace has. So This isn't definite, but if this is true, the investigation is over. This should be so easily proven or disproven. It should be an easy thing to do. An emergency room is always busy. It's always got lots of workers, staff members, patients running around. If this happened, this should be a very, very easy thing to confirm or to debunk. This just happened yesterday, so it's only a matter of time now before it is either debunked or confirmed. So I think this is just very important because this one point will prove or disprove a lot, I think. So Candace is basically going to make a plea to the public, and she's done this before, and it usually pays off.
Somebody somewhere drove that shuttle bus, booked the shuttle bus, saw the shuttle bus arriving at Intermountain Hospital, was working at Intermountain Hospital when a shuttle bus stopped and people emerged and files mysteriously then were transferred. And if you are that somebody, that one body, please email us. More tips at CandaceOwens.com.
More tips at CandaceOwens.com. So that is huge. That is huge. And if this proves to be true, the whole thing comes unraveled. If it doesn't, because a little bit of information came up before, back in October about this, where Charlie's information, and Candace reported this, I remember it back in October when she did, Charlie's information had arrived at the wrong hospital before Charlie was taken out. His electronic file had arrived in the hospital system, but it was the wrong hospital. It wasn't Timpanogos, it was Utah Valley Hospital. So he didn't go to Utah. He didn't go to Utah Valley. He went to Timpanogos. And so when that happened, then people thought, "Wow, this is weird. Like this is a scandal. How did his information get here to the wrong hospital?" And then people started saying, "Well, maybe he went to that hospital," but no, he didn't. He went to Timpanogos. Timpanogos. I think I'm saying that right.
Remind you guys of another fact, which I think supplies some credence to this claim. A story which we broke way back in October of last year, on October 28th, to be specific. We couldn't figure out why, but we were like, Charlie has a hospital file that was at Utah Valley Hospital. We were so confused by this. Somebody had leaked this to us. People who worked there were certain that he was being treated at Utah Valley.
As I just said. And so it was very confusing at the time, but nothing ever came of that. That's the problem. Nothing happened. It just kind of disappeared. It's like many other things where we get a lead and then it just dies because nobody comes forward or anything like that. But here's an actual picture of that record, that someone took a picture of it and they blacked out some of the information, but you can see it's Charles J. Kirk. And this went to the wrong hospital. It went to Utah Valley Hospital when it, I guess, should have gone to Timpanogos, but it shouldn't have gone anywhere because it was in advance that this happened. It hadn't even happened yet. And this got there. So that's just too suspicious. It really is. Candace goes on to say that she has more information on this, but she really can't say any more about it without getting somebody in trouble. So we've got to respect that.
Anyway, there is more, and that I could tell you, but I think it would identify a source, so I would rather not do that.
Okay, so that's really big. That's really big. And she's consistently pleading to go max on this. She's asking for the public's help. Please, anybody that has information, let Candace know. Let me know if you want. jptruthprobe@gmail.com. And I'd be happy to forward it on to her if you want. jptruthprobe@gmail.com. As she said, somebody is going to catch the shuttle. Somebody's going to realize they'll work for the shuttle company, or they'll notice something weird on that day, or remember something that happened that day, or someone that was a patient there got transferred over to another hospital. Somebody has to. And if nobody comes forward, then I got to say this probably isn't going to pan out. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Then Candace gets into some comments. Let's go through a few of them real quick.
And intuition. I am a board certified anesthesiologist with 25 years of clinical experience, and I have a solid grasp of anatomy. I agree with you and John Bray that the exploding mic theory is the best explanation of what we could grasp from the...
So you're going to have several of these emails that will be supporting this exploding mic theory. It might not even be an exploding mic. I don't know. There's, as Baron Coleman said, there's a lot of technology out there that we don't know about. And stuff that, when we see it, we almost don't believe it because it's advanced science and we just don't have knowledge of all the ways and things that they do. The military was able to, in Venezuela, I think it was, they used like heat rays on people from outside of the building, or they shot these beams down into the building and forced people to evacuate. They have technology that we just don't know what it is. And it might just not be traditional, conventional explosion or, whatever they use now. It just might be something we don't know about. But they're all supporting the exploding mic theory. I guess as theories go, it's probably the best one out there so far. Definitely not a rifle on the top of the Losi Center. No, I don't believe that. Not at all. So she goes through several comments. One of the comments talked about when they're examining the bullet fragments or fragments in general, when you give them and they're examining them, do they just assume that it's a bullet, or do the people that hand it to them say, here's some fragments, tell us what it is, from A to Z? Or do they say, here's some bullet fragments, can you look at them and analyze them as bullet fragments? So which is it? Do they just hand the fragments to them and say, here, tell me what this is? Or do they attach some context to it and say, this is a bullet, these are bullet fragments. Can you analyze them for us? That's an important question, because we need to know if they're being steered in a certain direction, or if the science is just doing its job and analyzing the situation the way it is and giving us results. That's what she's asking here, and whether we can assume it's a bullet or not, that really is the question. Let's take a listen.
Big enough for them to use. Why is the base assumption that you're looking at a bullet? It's like telling somebody the answer, like, hey, this is a bullet fragment, when we know that it's the same metal. It could have the same jacketing if you use a shape.
That's right. Yeah, it could. And so that's a very good question. And also, in talking about a neck injury in general, some of the comments I think brought this up, and I'll play this first.
Access to IV drugs. He certainly sustained a neck injury, and his neck should have been stabilized before moving him. I think it wasn't stabilized because they were hiding what was on his shirt.
Yeah, and also Baron Coleman has seen the actual footage of them carrying Charlie away, and many people have. Baron said his neck was not stabilized at all. It was just flopping around like a Thanksgiving goose. His neck was just not supported at all. They were just more concerned about grabbing him and throwing him into the back of the SUV. They weren't concerned about stabilizing any neck, and I believe that's true. And I might have even seen that footage myself, actually, but it's been a while. So that's an interesting question. Also, the speed of the autopsy was discussed, and why was it so fast? What is the deal with having to do everything so quickly? Erica's over there filing motions to try to get this thing over with as soon as possible. Why? Why does it have to be over as soon as possible? This just needs to run its course and take as much time as it needs to get to the truth.
Why wouldn't you want to do the most thorough autopsy of all time? And that wasn't the circumstance here. It was rushed.
Yeah. So why? Why do we have to go so fast? So then she talks a little bit more about there not being any evidence, which we have discussed before.
I want to remind you guys that there is still zero concrete evidence that has been produced that there was ever even a gun on the Losi Center.
That's correct. Yeah, there's nothing linking him up there. They tried their best during the hearing to stitch together this story and make it seem like, even though they couldn't identify the person on the video, the prosecutor kept saying, do you believe this to be Tyler? Do you believe this to be him? And then they would say, why? And then the guy would say, well, because based on his description, his shoes, or based on he liked to wear hats, he wore sunglasses, but nothing in the car. It's like they didn't base it on the license plate. They based it on the description, and the description was wrong because the tailpipes have been proven to be different. Tyler Robinson's tailpipes were different from the tailpipes of the one that was driving around UVU that day. And there are other inconsistencies, but why not just base it on the license plate? Why do you have to guess? You don't have to guess. Another comment came up.
So GI 6791 writes, the fact that he'll take the time to mock you, referring to Andrew Colvett, won't take the time to answer your questions. Well, it says it all.
Yes, it does. That says it all. And they're more interested in trying to do a witty comeback or sound intelligent or whatever it is they're doing on that Charlie Kirk show. They don't care. It's like they don't care about the truth. Andrew came out with one video saying, I'd like to know the answers to these questions, and then he gave us like 3 or 4 questions. And what's he done since then? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. She talks a little bit about Erica.
This user wrote, we can be mailed private love letters that Charlie wrote to Erica that he expected no one to see as a fundraiser material, yet we can't know if he's cremated, yes or no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very, very suspicious. And then just to round it out here, she ended with this saying where Erica was saying, I forgive him, that man.
In retrospect, what Erica was doing was so evil. She was actually saying, I convict him.
I convict him, or I condemn him. I would say condemning him is exactly what she was doing, not forgiving him. And that's it. Absolutely spot on. That's exactly what Erica was doing. She said the words with her mouth, I forgive him, but she actually has done nothing but condemn him since then. So that's a summary, and that's pretty big. The things that came out in Candace's show yesterday are very enlightening, and honestly, if it wasn't for her, This would have been an open and shut case a long time ago, but there's so many things that are coming out now. It is impossible for the truth not to come out now, and that is my goal. That's why I'm doing this, just trying to do my part and go max, and I've just felt like it was time. So I hope you enjoyed it. I would love to hear your feedback and your comments. If you want to email me, jptruthprobe@gmail.com. or follow me on Twitter at jptruthprobe. And I would love to hear what you think. Let me know. Like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps out. It's a small channel, but I'm just trying and doing these. No advertisers or anything like that. Just doing the videos and trying to save you a little time. Some people don't have time to watch the whole Candace show, and if you missed it for some reason, catch the recap, and maybe that'll help out. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next video.